Course 103, Rural Society and Polity in India, Unit 5, Rural Social Transformation in Contemporary Times, Lesson 4, Rural Aspirations and Consumerism. The structure for the lesson will be as follows. We'll quickly get an introduction to rural aspirations and consumerism. We'll then look at specific aspects which have brought about changes in rural fabric. For instance, changes related to infrastructure, facilities, changes in class character, material consumption in rural society. Also, we'll look at e-commerce, and then we'll move on to understand change in aspirations and identity, and also delve specifically on rural youth. Indian society has seen a lot of changes over time. In 1950s, sociologist M. N. Srinivas had introduced the concept of Westernization to explain the process of social change in Indian society. It refers to adopting Western values and lifestyles, thinking, also adopting new types of clothing, food, other material products, adoption of science and technology, and also in terms of ideas and values and adoption of new systems of governance and administration. This kind of change was led by the privileged upper sections of village society. They were among the first to get modern education, moved to cities, took up professional jobs, and enjoyed the benefits that they received as a result, and led a materially rich life, having modern clothes, vehicles, houses, and also using all kinds of electrical and electronic gadgets. And over the years, there has been a rise of middle class in towns and cities in urban centers. Even as aspirations of urban middle class has increased, their consumption of material objects has also increased. With better paying jobs, they could afford, like I mentioned earlier, good housing, expensive clothes, new cars, electronic gadgets, and also foreign holiday trips. Now, when compared to urban India, it is a common thinking that rural people are simple, minimalistic, and very content with whatever they have. But rural India is not static. It has also changed with time. Villages have transformed fast, especially after the economic reforms. There are various influences that today have made inroads in rural India and are changing rural aspirations, lifestyles, consumption patterns, and also self-identity. People in villages are connected well to urban India and also the rest of the world. They desire to adapt aspects of that life. Interdependency on city market has changed lifestyles and habits of rural population, where consumption level is also increasing. Better roads, better houses, motor vehicles, electronic gadgets. Now many have motorbikes, even cars, mobile smartphones in rural India. Certain sections of the rural population are able to maintain a middle class lifestyle in villages, although not everybody is able to maintain it. Rural people across caste and community do aspire for it. Let us understand this change and phenomenon across 4 or 5 key aspects. So first is look at better infrastructure and facilities. Second, look at the change in class character. Third, look at changes in material culture, in consumerism, and also e-commerce. And then move on to understand change in aspirations, identity, and also understand the aspirations of rural youth. Change in infrastructure and facilities. There are some 4 or 5 key markers in basic infrastructure which have resulted and aided the lifestyle change and increased connectivity of rural areas. Housing. There are more pakka buildings now, some even bungalows which upper caste or big land owning classes own. Households where children are working in cities, earning well or living abroad, also spend on housing in their villages. In rural Punjab, for instance, water tanks are built on terraces which reflect their beliefs, wealth, their interest, their profession, or their identity. Tanks can be built in the shape of a football or as religious symbols or even vehicles. In recent times, aeroplanes also find a place as models of tanks. Airplane tanks actually show their success in a foreign land, their newly acquired wealth and status in society. Have a look at some of these images. These are water tanks. The tank representing a military tank shows that someone in the household is a part of the Indian Army. A tank consisting of a tractor model shows that the household belongs to a farmer. As regards the lower castes or classes, here too kacha houses are not necessarily that prominent now. There have been various housing schemes where government has been making provision for the lower castes and classes, like the Indira Awas Yojana, and there are also other state government and central government schemes where pakka houses are provided to the poor for protection against rain, cyclone and other calamities. Roads. Roads are much better and improved in rural India. There have been several government initiatives to connect villages with all-weather roads to the nearest towns or cities, but also internal roads within villages have been improved and made of concrete. The Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana was initiated in 2000 for making all-weather roads. Electrification. Progress has been made even in terms of electrification of villages. In 2018, central government said that all Indian villages have been electrified, but actually by definition, if 10% of households in a village get electricity, then the village is considered as electrified. So in this sense, electricity has reached all villages, but not all households. About 69% of rural households have been electrified, and now government is focusing on rural individual household electrification. Availability of cooking gas, another major need. More and more rural households are now using cooking gas. The central government's Ujjwala Yojana scheme was meant to provide free cooking gas LPG connections to the rural poor. Changes in character of the rural classes. Upper caste or traditional upper class population of villages were the ones who got an early opportunity to receive education and move to cities. And when they visited the villages, they brought modern amenities with them. But over the past few decades, lower classes and lower castes started to migrate to cities in large numbers and worked in various industrial and service sectors. Even though they were not educated, they earned better in cities and towns when compared to what they earned in their villages. The traditional village economy, mostly agriculture, does not hold much promise for them. With agriculture sector in distress and facing its own set of challenges, school dropouts, semi-skilled or unskilled rural population also found opportunities in migration and in urban centers and towns. And those who went out and experienced this city life wanted to come back and replicate it in rural areas. The availability of cheaper alternatives also makes it possible for them to think of belonging to a common, larger consumer culture. The rural class structure, therefore, is no longer the same. It has not changed drastically, but many of the traditionally poor and even the not so poor are experiencing higher socio-economic mobility. One, education is a factor, and second, the fact that semi-skilled and even unskilled persons are finding jobs. Both these factors make out migration more common even among the lower classes. The material aspects. Now, this kind of socio-economic change that we see in rural areas, the availability of infrastructure and facilities has resulted a change in the way people consume in rural India. Rural population now has exposure to various forms of communication, the radio, newspaper, television, internet, having smartphones. In addition to having bigger and better houses, there is growing consumption of electrical and electronic goods like television, having satellite television, refrigerator, washing machines are also now common. Even air conditioners are there in villages. Other gadgets for kitchen use are being used. Electric motors for irrigation, water filters, etc. also being used. The youth prefer motorbikes, and sometimes also many avail bank loans to purchase motorbikes. Having a smartphone and using social media is also common, especially among the rural youth. Mobiles and smartphones have entered village life, and it is not merely making village life very fast, but also affects the lifestyle of village people, their occupations, their thinking. Other material consumption includes clothing pattern that is available in cities. So through advertisements, through films and watching television serials, people get to know the latest trends in dressing style, and cheaper versions soon become available in the rural market or in the nearby towns. Latest entertainment forms are also available in music, in films, which get circulated through access to mass media, social media and the internet. Let us have a look at this illustration, which depicts consumer expenditure in India across city types in percentage. And this is done for 3 time periods: 2005, 2018 and 2030. So the habitation types have been divided into metro, into boomtown, rest of urban, developed rural and rest of rural. We see that the consumption expenditure in rural, combined rural, is quite high, combining developed rural and rest of rural across the 3 time periods, and it will continue to grow towards 2030. E-commerce is also on the rise in rural India, much in line with the general trend that is being experienced in the rest of India over the last few years. And with the high penetration of internet and mobiles, it has made it easy to access products and services via the online medium. So receiving their household products at their place, having access to banking, or even the submission of applications for students and those aspiring for jobs outside. The sectors where e-commerce is leaving an impact in rural economy and also benefiting these sectors: household sector, handicrafts sector, and also agro-based products. Like handicrafts, there are new opportunities to help them get their products online, and these are platforms which provide them with good business opportunity. Indian Postal Services has become a logistics channel for several e-commerce websites. Indian Postal Services have collaborated with at least 400 e-commerce websites. Internet users in rural areas have been found to be frequently below the age of 25, that is the youth. Aspirations. The availability of education is a primary factor that has enabled individuals to gain new self-confidence of doing something differently in their lives. Even for rural population, schooling has opened new avenues and aspirations. And aspiration is also about making a change in self-perception and self-identity. In the case of rural women and girls, receiving education and schooling has changed their personal lives. They are more aware of their rights and also moving out of their homes, seeking professional jobs, and even contributing towards the development of the village or rural economy or even the nation. Going to school to learn how to read and write is one step, but schooling is not just about academics. It also opens up other avenues and opportunities like sports. Through engagement in sports or other extracurricular activities, girls also overcome shyness, any inhibitions they may have related to their bodies and related to their confidence levels, and have a general exposure to the wider world. Even in the case of rural adult women, we see that several initiatives have helped them move ahead in their aspiration and self-identity. For example, the growth of self-help groups has also renewed women's confidence. We also find more women entrepreneurs now in rural areas who are undertaking small-scale income generation activities. Rural youth. The expansion of education, arrival of social media, and rapidly increasing urbanization has shown a great impact on the lifestyle and aspirations, particularly of the rural youth. They want jobs outside the villages, a permanent job with good salary. They even attend coaching centers to prepare for exams like defense services like the police or the UPSC. Social media and internet access has also given them a greater level of awareness regarding opportunities that exist. And as a result, the rural youth are full of aspirations and are quite connected in that sense with their urban counterparts. In many ways, they now have much more interaction with the external world. I conclude the lesson with an activity for you to do. In what ways can access to digital media or access to internet or having greater connectivity with the external world, in what ways does it open up opportunities for rural youth? List 4 to 5 points related specifically to having access to employment opportunities. With this lesson, we complete course 103 on rural society and polity in India. The course comprised of 5 units. Unit 1, a historical understanding and perspectives of village India, looked at defining village in India and also covered the various historical and sociological perspectives of village India. We also looked at rural social institutions of family, kinship and marriage. Unit 2 was on rural society's basic social structure, and here we covered caste, tribe, class and gender. Unit 3 focused on Panchayati Raj institutions in India, the historical background, the 73rd Amendment Act and the existence on the ground level of Panchayat Raj institutions and their functioning. Unit 4 was on rural demography. Here we covered rural population, its character, composition. Then we looked at the basic nature of rural economy, the composition of rural labor force, and lastly, what rural poverty looks like. The last unit, Unit 5, Rural Transformation in Contemporary Times, looked at challenges in agriculture, in education and health, water, sanitation and hygiene, and discussed rural aspirations and consumerism. Thank you.